What's up, everybody? I'm Chris Rimbolt. Welcome to episode 3 of All with AI. This one's a pretty important one. I've got a fairly important message in this one. So I have no sponsors, nothing to offer you other than what's in this episode with my ideas. You may have yourself started thinking along these lines of these ideas that I've got in here. And with this episode, I hope to literally help write the future, to influence the course of our local instance of the universe. First, I'm going to propose some AI projects and describe the way that I believe that those things will go into development, and then outline why I think this process is important. Let's just start simply by brainstorming some ways that AI can solve specific problems, and from there start to imagine how it's possible to actually solve those problems. I believe that the answer to unlocking our best potential future will come from the open source community of developers, and I'll tell you why later. But first, let's talk ways that AI can solve real world problems for us. So this week I've been, and would encourage you to do this as well, I've been looking for ways that AI tools could be used or created for making life better in some small ways and some big ways. So as I go about my day, I keep my eyes open and a mental list running. So here's what I have so far for this week. First, a meditation and personal growth AI. This one is actually really near and dear to my heart because I have been working on personal growth and meditation since probably, I would say 2016 or 2017 is when I really started to get into it. So I've been doing it for a while. But the more I do it, the more I realize it is a very narrow track that you're trying to keep your attention on as you go through your meditation. And it's kind of like riding a bicycle. The more you do it, the better you get at it. But I thought it would be interesting to put AI to work for you on this. So the practice of monitoring your thoughts versus operating on autopilot. So as I've taken it beyond just sitting and meditating. So as I go about my day, I try to monitor my thoughts, monitor my emotions and my reactions and my beliefs. Pay attention to them, because you can't change your reality unless you change the person that's in your reality. I believe that we are creating our reality on some level, and quantum physics actually proves that. But I digress. I think it would be interesting to create a method to identify when that happens, when your attention goes from actually paying attention to what you're doing, so the meditative state, the Zen state, the present state, the conscious state, when your mind goes from that state to kind of just being on autopilot and just kind of like living in your habitual mental cycles. And don't get me wrong, I don't have any delusions that it would be possible to actually be in a meditative state all the time. I think that we probably have a limited amount of attention that we can have. But I also believe that it's like a muscle, and the more we develop our attention and our consciousness, the more of it we will have. So what AI can do here is perhaps it would have to be an EEG machine of some kind, some way to see your brain waves, or perhaps there's some other biological signature of it. And if there is, AI could probably help identify it. But find a way to let you know when your attention has wandered and you're no longer paying attention to your surroundings, your senses, and monitoring your thoughts. So some sort of tool that lets you know, hey, you, my friend, are now no longer paying attention and you're sinking back into your anxious loops or whatever it is that you're trying to work on. So I think that would probably be some sort of wearable combined with software. So not everything is going to need an additional hardware thing, but I think that probably this example would. So that was example number 1. I've got 2 more. The second one is a discovery AI. So I have been looking for ways to live more adventurously and less in a loop. I don't know if you've seen Westworld, but in it, there are characters which are AIs that they're on a loop, and they just go through the same story every single time that the simulation is reset. And that's very much how I used to live, very much habitually. And I think it's the default. I think it helps conserve energy. And so that might be a evolutionary advantage of kind of living in a loop. You don't have to expend mental energy because brain power is very expensive, but from a computation and energy standpoint. But I want to add adventure and intrigue to my routines. I don't want to necessarily delete all my routines because, yes, they can be helpful, and I don't think we can avoid having routines. But I think it would be cool if there was an AI that learns what you like by analyzing your location, your browsing history, your purchase behavior, and starts to suggest side quests for you that are timely and match your routine. So say, for example, you're starting to scroll mindlessly and maybe you have kids or you have an errand that you need to run. You need to go pick up the kids in an hour, or you need to go pick up ingredients to make for dinner in an hour. And the AI kind of knows that you have this routine. And it also knows that you're starting to scroll mindlessly. So maybe you have some free time now that you're about to waste. And so it could suggest to you a hike at a park between where you are right now and where you need to go for your errand, because it knows you maybe would particularly enjoy seeing the leaves come in the springtime, and it knows that based on the weather data and the time of year that it is, that would be a perfect time for you to go to this park and see the forest changing, and it knows that's something you would like. That would be awesome. Or maybe it sees that you're watching reruns of your favorite show, and maybe it knows about a similar show that people that have similar behavioral or personality traits to you, it knows there's a similar show that's available starting maybe this week or tonight on another streaming service, and says, hey, you would probably like this other show, and here's some specific similarities to the thing that you are watching reruns of right now, so why don't you go try that out? I would really like that. But that was example number 2, a discovery AI. Example number 3, an economic optimizer AI. And by this, I mean your personal and household economics. So perhaps, let's say for an example to outline this one, perhaps you've been shopping new phones, and it sees that, and it knows maybe you have an old digital camera, and it sees that resale values on those have been spiking on eBay for some reason. Maybe somebody released a viral video about that camera on YouTube, and now everybody wants their own. And it also knows, this AI knows, that you've been shopping for a new phone. It knows that you want to upgrade your phone. And so what it will say is, oh, by the way, you have a camera that you don't use. Haven't seen any new pictures from it in your camera roll in about a year. By the way, it's going for good money on eBay right now. So if you sell that and your current device, you will have enough to get this new device that you want for free. So that would be an example of that AI kind of knowing the resources that you have, knowing the fluctuating values of them, and knowing what it is that you would like and saying, hey, you can make this exchange here. Or maybe it knows that, and this is, again, the economic optimizer AI, maybe it knows that you enjoy gardening, and it sees a post on your local Facebook page where somebody is offering $200 to come help them plant some trees. And it says, hey, you like doing this thing. This person's offering money for it. Why don't you contact them and say you would love to do it and you have some experience in it? So a way to connect you with projects that people need help with, that they're offering some sort of trade or monetary value for. Or maybe final example for the economic optimizer AI, maybe it knows that you're going on a week-long vacation soon, and it just automatically suggests contacting a local person who loves dog sitting and can watch your dog while you're gone. They have great comments. They have many recommendations, maybe on Nextdoor, which is an app. And it also knows that that is half the price of doing what you would normally do, which is boarding your dog. So not only would your dog get great personal attention, but it would cost you half as much. And the person that loves dog sitting, they're on the other side of that exchange as well, and they benefit from that too. But those are the three examples of AI that I would like to see happen. The meditation one, a discovery one for finding things to do outside of your normal routine, and the economic optimizer AI. But there are some bridges to cross before we can build things like these examples. The main ones are, one, it requires access to the live internet. And not all of the AIs out there have been permitted to do this. GPT-4 has a ability to browse the internet, but it is very much in limited alpha, which means that not everybody who's just like using ChatGPT or the playground or the API has access to it. Just a few people have the access to the browsing GPT-4. But there's some tools like AutoGPT, which are starting to be able to do this. And obviously the other things that the AI would need for these examples to work would be like the ability to view the internet through your actual profiles. So signed into your Facebook account, signed into your Nextdoor account, signed into your eBay, and your Gmail probably as well. So also it would need... people would need to be comfortable with, for the meditation one particularly, for it to monitor their biological signals. So to be able to tell when your attention is wandering and say, hey, you said you wanted to work on staying conscious, your attention is wandering. That would require a fairly personal level of biological signal. It would be rather intimate, to say the least. And also, things like knowing your location data and your spending history and the things that you own, those are fairly invasive needs as well. So that brings up the issue that in the process of building truly helpful and awesome AI tools, we will need to navigate the level of access we are willing and comfortable granting it. I think this has a potential to create possibly the biggest social friction, social gap. The people who are early adopters and want to integrate the power and helpfulness of AI into their lives in ways like this and make them more productive and effective and probably mentally healthier and have more interesting experiences and optimize their economics. And then there's going to be the people who don't trust it at all and see all of that as a threat to safety and privacy. I think this is the root of the conflict that's brewing right now at the upper levels of civilization, with the CEOs and the government having the alignment debate and the efforts to create legislation about AI. But I believe that it will reach the level of individuals soon in the form of this question: how willing are you to let AI use your internet accounts and view your personal data and biological information? The optimists and early adopters, which I identify as one of those, will believe that the more you say yes, the more superhero powers you can potentially gain, and the more economic and personal opportunity you open yourself up to, the more you say yes to opting into this kind of thing. So on the other side, which will probably be very vocal, they'll most likely claim that the advantages gained by the AI integration and adoption side, it's just too unfair and too unethical, and they will probably try to stop it through social pressure tactics or potentially even violence. There will also probably be another set of people who view AI through the lens of religion and see it as a sign of the end times or the mark of the beast, and like the second coming and Armageddon are definitely at hand because of this, and so they'll have their own group immune reaction to this as well. But I think the potential for significant social turbulence during the period of adoption is quite possible, but we might actually be able to miss it just because I think this could happen. I think this could happen so quickly that these immune reactions might just be too slow to the coming change. I think it's possible that the groups that don't want this to happen, they just might not be able to mobilize or react fast enough. So think about this. The adoption curve for this will be probably faster than the smartphone. The smartphone, its adoption curve was faster than that of the internet, and the internet was adopted faster than personal computers were adopted. So there's this, it's like a Fibonacci sequence where the next adoption curve is much shorter than the one that's related to it that came before it. So we had personal computers, and then we had the internet, which people adopted even faster. Then we had the smartphone, which only took a few years for that to go from just the very tip-top of the adoption curve, where people with money or people who are early adopters buy it, to going all the way down market where the cell phone's practically free. And now AI is just happening ridiculously fast. We saw that with the adoption of ChatGPT, with it getting to 100 million users faster than anything in history. So now I want to talk to my fellow tech optimists and early adopters. I see you. Here are the reasons why this tech adoption curve might happen so fast, like I said, that the activist opposition and social unrest just won't even have a chance to happen. It could happen so quickly that you and I are really the only ones that see and understand what's happening, because we understand tech adoption curves. So here's why. First, the initial apps themselves, the AI apps, won't require a huge cost to consumer. It's like the cost of a download instead of like buying a brand new device, like an original iPhone or the PC, or paying to get internet run to your house, or waiting for that to happen and even be available. So with the suite of sensors and large amount of data already on our smartphones, it won't require like a big upfront investment in a new device necessarily. We already have most of the hardware needed, and the years of our civilization producing wearables rapidly lowered the cost of producing devices like that, and smartphones too. Their economies of scale are vastly cheapened, and like you can like people lose a cell phone out their window when they're driving and won't even turn around to pick it up sometimes if their stuff's backed up. It's very cheap to replace the lower end or the older generation devices. So we already have most of the hardware needed, and basically all that remains is ability to download. So the speed of adoption is then not about how fast hardware can be designed, built, and reach economies of scale. It's not about how fast the internet access infrastructure can be installed. It's not even about the speed of research anymore, because now AI itself is being used to rapidly accelerate research efforts, including researching how to do useful research faster. So you might think that the investment and cost required for creating this world-changing AI moves from the consumer to the business then. So the business has to be buying new GPUs and creating new language models. Like, that is true. Like the big investment and cost of making this happen is not necessarily on the consumer, it's on the businesses that provide the service. So they're the ones taking the risk in training their own model and the risk and liability of putting the tools out there. And yes, this is true to an extent, that the traditional structure of how things are done in the past isn't really necessarily the case anymore. But even the idea of passing on the cost to like the businesses that are trying to provide AI, I think that's still looking too zoomed in. We need to zoom out a little bit more. So this whole thing is being accelerated and decentralized, and it's because of the open source communities. So let's talk about the open source community for a little bit. So they are creating artificial intelligence tools that are pretty amazing. So that revolutionary Auto GPT, the version of GPT that somebody built in such a way that it can search the internet and do specific tasks for you, those were open source projects, and it was free for the world. It was just released for free. I installed it and didn't spend anything other than the GPT compute, which we'll get to that in a second. The Hugging Face community of developers. Hugging Face is a place where there is a lot of open source development happening with artificial intelligence. Even Apple's their voice assistant Siri has been integrated with a GPT-4 tool, and I have it installed on my phone, and that was free to do. So one of the most important things that the open source community will create then will be AI developers. Creating an artificial entity that you can open up on your screen So it's an app or a program or even in the web, and tell it what kind of app you want it to make is what will really bring about an amazing new future where we can envision tools like the ones we did at the beginning of this episode with Economic Optimizer and the Adventure Creator and the Meditation AI. So it might take the AI developer, so like the artificial intelligence that's writing the code for you, it might take it a few days to make what you want, and it might have to work with you and get feedback and fine-tune things to make your app work just right. But I truly believe it is possible and that it can and will be done, that there will be an open source artificial intelligence developer. By that, I mean the developer itself is artificial intelligence, and it will be made by the open source community. It will be a little app maker. Think about it. So if apps can read your brain scans or look at your social media for you, if those things can be created on the fly as a one-off instance for you specifically, then the companies like OpenAI essentially become intelligence utilities, like the electric company and the gas company and the water utility. So if this happens, then the intelligence that makes the app that makes apps make apps. So the intelligence behind the scenes that can write the code for you to make the app for you that is just for you that you ask for. Say, I want an adventure app and here's how it should work, and the AI makes that for you. OpenAI is the utility that makes that intelligence work. So you're paying your API costs where maybe you're a little open source AI developer that was created by the open source community. It will use GPT-4 or 5 or 6 to make this thing for you. So their intelligence powers the system that runs on your device. The issue with this, though, is that OpenAI is kind of the centralized place that provides the intelligence for all this to work. And the issue with that is I think that's a little risky. I think that large language models are going down market. You see it with the Stanford project where they built the Dalai Lama. I think that was what they called it. And it was trained on the backbone of OpenAI's work, and it costed like $600. And I've even seen the quotes for the cost of training your own language model coming down to like $60. So I think that the intelligence as a utility providers like OpenAI will continue to exist, and they will probably still be creating the best intelligence that you can use, but I don't think it will take the open source community super long to get to GPT 3.5 and even GPT-4 and create this intelligence in an open source way. So maybe even the research that is researching how to use AI to make discoveries will arrive and provide us our own ability to custom train intelligence in an open source way and control how it's trained. But there's a huge wall between us and that, and that's the fact that there are GPU clusters that cost millions of dollars and use a ton of electricity that are needed to train something like GPT-4 currently. So there needs to be some breakthroughs in research where we are able to make a much more efficient device, almost probably an organic computer architecture, which I've started to see some things about organic computer architecture. This is probably necessary to create our own LLMs that we run locally. It's just a new compute and training architecture. But I'm optimistic that this will be possible, again, because AI is helping accelerate this sort of research, which is crazy. So if we do this, that would imply that we're about to create intelligent life, because if it's a organic computer, it might have some life to it. And if it's able to be intelligent, then that would make each of us like a god, able to create just cascading civilizations of our own. Maybe that's the true alignment problem, what humans will do if they have unlimited intelligence at their command. But back down to earth, though. Here are the things that I believe are crucial for us. 1, we need an artificial intelligence developer. What that means is a developer that itself is powered by AI. So we take our requests to it, it asks us clarifying questions, and it can make us one-off apps and custom programs, things that a company would not dare to make, things that can monitor your biological signals or your location data or the things that it will need, like your social media logins and things, to do the cool stuff that AI has the potential to do. I just think that it will need to be open source for this to be developed. I don't foresee a company being willing to make these things. Maybe Apple would do that with making a on-device AI, but I just see it as too much of a liability. I think we will need to have these be one-off apps that are created by AI for us. And another point, we need to figure out how to not rely on OpenAI for the intelligence utility. So yes, it's very awesome that we're able to paste our API key from OpenAI into our projects, our open source things, but I think it would be great if we could find a way to not just rely on them for the intelligence that drives these things. And finally, this needs to be done, this creating this open source, artificially intelligent developer that makes one-off apps and creating our own LLMs. This needs to be done before the incumbent power brokers figure out how to do this themselves or figure out how to stop us, because they'll try to use it to centralize power and secure their interests. We need the power of AI in the hands of as many diverse interests as possible, a sort of social mutually assured destruction, so that the returns on using AI nefariously are driven to near zero. So, because just as it's possible to do evil with AI, it is also possible to detect and stop bad actors rapidly with AI. And I think if just a few entities have AI's power in their hands, the risks are much greater that there is not enough biodiversity, as it were, to stop a rogue actor using AI for nefarious purposes. Biodiversity is going to be our salvation in the AI world. We can't just have a few. It is vital that this be decentralized. I believe that AI is the answer to many social ills, from homelessness to terrifying things like mass shootings. We can create a safer and more abundant world by open sourcing the AI tools. I believe that this route can and will be taken. Thank you for listening, my friend. I hope that this information finds the right ears. Please help it on its way through the web of probability and causality. Share it with the right minds and keep it away from those who would seek to selfishly gatekeep the power of AI. Thank you for listening. I'm Chris Rimbolt, and I love you all.